The day I was sent into the governor's parlor, I wasn't supposed to speak, not to look, not to think, and definitely not to ask questions. But she was standing there, by the window, holding a book like it meant something. And for a second, she looked just like me, trapped. So I broke the only rule that ever kept me alive. I looked at the governor's daughter, and I asked, "If you're free, why do you look like you're waiting to escape?" That was the moment everything changed. Not just for me, for her, for that house, and for everyone who believed the rules could never break. Savannah, Georgia, 1849. The Whitlock house stood high above the street like it had been built to look down on other people. Tall white columns, iron balconies, windows polished so clean they caught the sun like mirrors. Men passing in carriages would tip their hats at it. Women would speak its name softly at church socials. Governor Nathaniel Whitlock lived there, and when a man like that lives inside a house long enough, people begin to think the house itself has power. I was 13 years old enough to work, young enough that people still called me boy, even when they wanted me to do a man's labor. My name was Ezekiel. Most people called me Zeke when they wanted something done fast. When they were angry, they called me whatever they pleased. I had been born on Whitlock land. Not in the house. Never in the house. In the cabins behind it. That mattered. Everything on a place like that had its place. The house. The yard. The kitchens. The stable. The cabins. The people. And if you were born there, the world expected you to stay where you were put. But I had always had a problem with that. Not with the staying. With the thinking. I thought too much. Watched too much. Remembered too much. I noticed who shouted before they hit. Who smiled before they lied. Who prayed hardest on Sunday and punished hardest on Monday. That kind of noticing can keep you alive. It can also make life harder. Because once you begin to see clearly, it gets harder to pretend you don't. That morning, Miss Beale, the housekeeper, found me near the back steps carrying coal. Her voice cut sharp through the yard before I even turned around. "Boy, the parlor needs tending before Miss Clara comes down." I stopped. Not because the task was unusual, but because the room was. The front parlor was not for people like me. Not unless we were cleaning it. And never alone unless someone was desperate or careless. Or both. "Mind the silver," Miss Beale said. "Mind the china. Mind the books. Mind yourself." That last part meant the most. On a place like that, minding yourself meant, keep your eyes down, your hands steady, your thoughts hidden, and your mouth shut. I took the polishing cloth and went through the side passage into the main house. The change hit every time. Outside, dirt, heat, voices, work. Inside, cool air, waxed floors, quiet, money. The halls smelled like lavender and old wood. Portraits watched from the walls. Men with white hair and dark coats staring down as if they had built the world and expected gratitude for it. Maybe their sons believed that. Maybe mine were meant to. The parlor doors stood half open. I paused at the threshold. Sunlight spilled across the rugs. Dust floated in the air like gold. The piano gleamed black near the far wall. Books lined a cabinet beside the fireplace. Velvet drapes framed the windows. It was too much beauty for a room that mostly held silence. And she was already there. Clara Whitlock. 17. the governor's only daughter. She stood near the window in a pale dress, one hand resting against the frame, a closed book in the other. I had seen her before, of course. At a distance, on the staircase, in church, on the balcony when guests came. Girls like her were raised to glide, never hurry, never sweat, never look like the world could touch them. But that morning, she didn't look untouched. She looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from labor, a different kind, the kind that settles behind the eyes when a person has said yes too many times to a life they never chose. She turned when she heard me. Her eyes landed on me only for a second before moving away. That should have been the end of it. I should have begun dusting. She should have ignored me. The room should have stayed the way rooms like that are supposed to stay. Ordered, silent, safe. Instead, she kept looking, not boldly, not rudely, as if she was trying to place me. I moved to the mantel first. That was the safest place to begin. Something simple, something breakable enough to force my hands into caution. A porcelain shepherdess, a silver clock, 2 brass candlesticks. I could feel her attention still on me. That made my shoulders tighten. People with power never understand how heavy their attention is. It changes the air around you. "You're new to the parlor," she said at last. Her voice was softer than I expected. Educated, even, used to being heard the first time. "No, miss," I said. "Just not often." That should have been enough. It wasn't. "What's your name?" I turned too fast. That was my first mistake. White folks in that house rarely asked names unless they needed to write them down for punishment or call them out for labor. I did not know what answer would serve me best. Truth sometimes caused trouble. So did hesitation. "Ezekiel, miss." Then, because fear teaches you to soften your own edges. "Zeke." She nodded like she was storing it somewhere. Not like a mistress learning the name of property. Like a person meeting another person. That was dangerous. More dangerous than cruelty. Cruelty follows rules. Human interest does not. I went to the side table next. There was a tea tray there, polished bright enough to catch my reflection in pieces. I kept my eyes on the silver. That helped. Looking at her too long would have meant forgetting where I was. "You can read, can't you?" The cloth stopped in my hand. Just for a second. That was my second mistake. I recovered fast. Too fast, maybe. "No, miss." A lie. A necessary one. Mama June had taught me letters from discarded newspapers and Bible scraps behind the wash house when I was small enough to fit between the rain barrels. She said words were doors. She said once you knew how to open one, the world got bigger even if your body stayed put. She also said never let the wrong person know you can read. Some doors get you killed. Clara looked down at the book in her hand, then back at me. I knew that look. She didn't believe me. "That's a shame," she said quietly. "There are whole worlds in books." I should have stayed silent, should have nodded, should have moved to the next table and let the moment die where it stood. But there was something in the way she said worlds. Not like she owned them, like she wanted them. So I made the mistake that changed everything. I looked at her properly. At the girl in the expensive dress. At the daughter of the most powerful man on that street. At the hand on the window frame. At the book held too tightly. At the face that should have looked content and did not. And before fear could stop me, I asked, "If you're free, why do you look like you're waiting to escape?" The room went still. Not quiet. Still. Like something had cracked open and both of us heard it. She stared at me. No shock at first. Just stillness. Then something in her face changed. Not anger. Not offense. Recognition. I had said too much. I knew it the moment the words left me. My hands went cold. My throat tightened. I dropped my gaze and waited for the sound of my own ruin. A call from Miss Beale. A threat. A slap. Anything. What came instead was a whisper. Because I am. I looked up before I could stop myself. She was still by the window, still holding that book. But now the mask was gone. Only for a second. Maybe less. Enough. Enough to know I had stepped into something I did not understand yet. Enough to know there was no easy path back out of it. And then, from somewhere in the hall, came the sound of approaching footsteps. Male, heavy, certain. The kind of footsteps that make everyone in a governor's house remember their place. The footsteps didn't hurry. They didn't need to. Men like him never rushed inside their own house. Clara moved first. Not toward the door. Away from me. Back to the chair by the window, the one she was supposed to be sitting in. The book opened in her hands like nothing had happened. Like she had never said those words. Like I had never asked mine. Finish your work, she said softly. But this time, it wasn't an order. It was a warning. I turned back to the table. Picked up the cloth. Forced my hands to move. The door opened. Governor Whitlock entered like the room belonged to him. Because it did. Tall. Broad shoulders. Hair gone silver at the sides. Eyes that never searched, only judged. Two men followed behind him. Well-dressed. Well-fed. The kind of men who spoke about the world like it had been made for them. Clara, he said. His voice was calm. It always was. That made it worse. Father, she replied. Perfect tone. Perfect posture. Perfect daughter. If I hadn't heard her a moment ago, I would have believed it. His eyes moved across the room. They landed on me. Stayed just long enough to confirm I was where I was supposed to be. Not long enough to care. Boy, he said. Are you finished? Nearly, sir. Then be quick about it. We have business to discuss. Business. That word meant everything and nothing. Land. Money. People. Decisions that changed lives without asking permission. I moved faster. Not because he told me to, because I wanted to be gone before my face betrayed anything. The men settled into chairs. One of them removed his gloves. Another poured himself a drink without asking. They spoke like the room had no ears. Like nothing inside it could understand. They're getting bolder, one of them said. Too bold. Rumors are spreading, another added. About movement through the city. Governor Whitlock didn't respond right away. He sat back. Fingers steepled. Thinking. Then we make it harder, he said finally. Stricter patrols. Tighter control. And above all, we keep them ignorant. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Intentional. Education is the problem, he continued. Give them ideas, and they start believing things. Believing what? One of the men asked with a laugh. That they're equal. The men chuckled. Like it was a joke. Like it was impossible. My grip tightened around the cloth. Just for a second. I kept my head down. Kept moving. But every word landed. Books are dangerous, the governor went on. more dangerous than any weapon. Because a weapon can be taken away. But once a man starts thinking, you cannot put that back. Silence followed. Not empty. Satisfied. I finished the last table. Set the cloth down. Stepped back. Done, sir. He didn't look at me. Didn't need to. Then go. I turned. Walked toward the door. Slow. Controlled. Every step measured. But just before I crossed the threshold, I made a mistake. I looked back. Clara was sitting exactly as she should be. Book open. Hands still. Face calm. But her eyes weren't on the page. They were on her father. And in them, there was something new. Not confusion. Not sadness. Something sharper. Something awake. I stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind me. And the air changed again. Easier to breathe. Harder to ignore what I had just heard. I kept walking. Past the portraits. Past the polished floors. Back toward the world where I belonged. But something had followed me out of that room. Something I couldn't put back. His words. Her face. My question. That night, lying on the narrow cot in the quarters, I stared at the ceiling and replayed it all. Her voice. Because I am. His voice. Keep them ignorant. Two truths. Same house. Same day. Different worlds. I had always known the rules. Where to stand. What to say. What not to become. But now, for the first time, I could see the cracks in them. And once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. You start asking questions. Dangerous ones. And I had already asked my first. I just didn't know yet what it was going to cost me. 3 days. That's how long I stayed away from that room, not by choice, by instinct, the kind that keeps you breathing. On a place like that, you learn when something shifts, when a line gets crossed, when the ground under your feet isn't as steady as it was yesterday. And that morning in the parlor, something had moved. So I kept my head down, worked the yard, carried water, split wood, fixed what was broken, did everything expected of me, and nothing more. But the problem with moments like that is they don't leave you alone. Her voice stayed, because I am. His voice stayed, keep them ignorant. And somewhere between the two, my thoughts started changing. On the third afternoon, Miss Beale found me again. Zeke. I turned before she finished. That's how you show obedience without being told. Back to the house, she said. The front rooms. My chest tightened. Not enough for anyone to notice. Enough for me to feel it. Yes, ma'am. The walk up to the house felt longer that day. Same path, same steps. Different weight. I told myself it would be like before. Clean, leave, forget. But I knew better. Something like that doesn't go back to normal. The parlor door was closed this time. That alone was wrong. Rooms like that stayed open during the day. Closed doors meant privacy. And privacy meant danger. I knocked once. Soft. Come in. Her voice. I pushed the door open. She was alone. Standing by the bookshelf this time, not the window. The curtains were half drawn. Light cut across the room in thin lines. Dust floating in it like quiet secrets. "You're late," she said. Not sharp, not accusing. Just noticing. "I came when I was told, miss." She studied me again. That same look. Like she was trying to understand something no one had ever explained to her. "I asked for you," she said. That stopped me. Not my body. My thoughts. "You asked, miss." She nodded. "Miss Beale doesn't question me." Of course she didn't. Girls like Clara didn't need reasons. Their wanting was reason enough. Close the door. Every instinct I had, every lesson beaten quiet into me, told me not to. But I did. The click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. The room changed. Not just quiet, sealed. "You can read," she said. Not a question. I didn't answer. Didn't move. Silence can protect you, if you hold it long enough. She stepped closer. Slow. Careful. Like she didn't want to scare me. "I saw your eyes," she said. "The other day. When you looked at the books." I swallowed. Too late to pretend. That's not something a man does who can't read. Man. Not boy. That word hit different. Still, truth was dangerous. "Yes, miss." The room went still again. But not like before. Not tense. Focused. "Who taught you?" I hesitated. Mama June's face flashed in my mind. Wrinkled hands. Soft voice. "Words are doors, child." "I learned," I said carefully. "Where I could." She didn't press. Didn't need to. Instead, she turned to the shelf. Ran her fingers along the spines. Then pulled one free. A small book. Worn at the edges. She held it out to me. "Take it." I didn't move. Didn't even reach. "Miss, if someone sees." "No one will," she said. Too quickly. Too certain. That's when I understood. She wasn't just curious. She had already decided. "Why?" I asked. That was my second mistake. Asking twice. But she didn't get angry. Didn't correct me. She looked at me like the answer mattered. Because you shouldn't be kept from it. Simple. Quiet. Dangerous. I took the book. Slowly. Like it might burn me. It felt heavier than it should have. Not in weight. In meaning. "Keep it hidden," she said. "Read when you can. Bring it back to me." This wasn't kindness. Not just kindness. This was something else. A risk. "For me?" I asked. "For both of us." The truth settled between us. Clear. Unspoken. If anyone found out, I would be punished. Severely. Maybe worse. And her. Her life wouldn't end. But it would change. Her freedom, whatever kind she had, would shrink even smaller. "You asked me a question," she said softly. "In that room." I nodded. I remembered. This is my answer. I looked down at the book. Then back at her. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. She wasn't just trapped. She was choosing to push against it. The same way. In my own small, dangerous ways. I had been. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hall. Far away. But enough. You should go, she said. Her voice back to careful. Controlled. I slipped the book inside my shirt. Pressed it flat against my chest. Zeke. I paused at the door. That question you asked. Don't stop asking it. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because I already knew. I wouldn't. I stepped out. Closed the door. And just like that, everything had changed again. This time, not by accident. By choice. I should have burned the book. That would have been the smart thing. The safe thing. Instead, I hid it. Under loose wood, inside folded cloth, beneath everything that looked ordinary enough to be ignored. But nothing about it felt ordinary. Not the weight, not the risk, not the way my hands trembled the first time I opened it. That night, when the quarters fell quiet, I waited, counted breaths, listened for footsteps. Then I pulled it out. The pages smelled like dust and something older. Like time. I traced the letters slowly, careful, like Mama June taught me. Word by word, the world got bigger. Not outside, inside. Ideas. Thoughts. Voices from men who had never stood where I stood, yet somehow knew what it meant to be trapped. That was the danger. Not the book itself, what it did to you. Because once you begin to understand something, you start asking why it was kept from you. And once you ask why, you don't stop. Days passed, then a week, then more. Nothing on the outside changed. Work stayed the same. Voices stayed the same. Rules stayed the same. But inside, everything was shifting. And I wasn't the only one. She kept calling me back. Not often. Never enough to be noticed. Just enough. Sometimes for cleaning. Sometimes for nothing at all. We learned how to speak without being heard. Short words. Careful tones. Eyes doing most of the talking. She showed me more. Not just books. Ideas. Men wrote these, she said once. About freedom. But they never imagined someone like you reading them. And yet here you are. I didn't know if that was irony, or something stronger. One afternoon, the sky turned gray. Storm coming. The house felt heavier when storms rolled in, like the walls were listening. She was in the music room that day, not the parlor. The piano stood open, keys pale against the dark wood. I had never been that close to it before, never touched one. Sit, she said. I didn't, couldn't. Miss, no one is here. That's not the point. She looked at me, really looked. Then something in her expression changed again. You're afraid. Yes. Not a lie. Not this time. She nodded slowly. Good. That surprised me. Fear means you understand the risk. She moved closer, lowered her voice. But sometimes, understanding isn't enough. She took my hand, placed it gently on the keys. I froze, didn't breathe. Press. I did. The sound rang out, clear, soft, real. I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned, heart racing. "You see," she said, "it's just a sound. Just a sound." But it wasn't. It was proof that something forbidden could still exist. "You could learn," she said, "if things were different." If. That word carried weight. "What would you do," she asked suddenly, "if you weren't here?" No one had ever asked me that. Not like that. I stared at the keys, at my hands, at the space between what was and what wasn't. "I'd learn," I said. "Everything. Read, travel, help others do the same." The words came out faster than I expected, like they had been waiting. She smiled. Not polite, not practiced. Real. "That's what scares them," she said. "Not strength. Not numbers. Thought." A sound in the hallway, voices. Closer than before. She stepped back. The distance between us returned all at once. "Go," she whispered. I grabbed the cloth, moved toward the door, but stopped. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. That question again, different shape, same danger. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes moved to the window. Then back to me. "Because someone has to." Simple, quiet, certain. The door opened, too fast. Miss Beale stood there, eyes sharp, taking everything in. "Zeke," she said, "what are you doing here?" My heart slammed against my ribs. Too loud, too fast. He's helping me move the bench," Clara said. Smooth, instant, like she had rehearsed it. Miss Beale's eyes shifted between us. Suspicion, calculation. Then, a small nod. "Finish and leave," she said. "Both of you have duties." "Yes, ma'am." The door closed. Silence returned. But not the same silence. That was close, too close. I looked at Clara. She looked back. No words this time. None needed. We both understood it now. Clearly. Fully. This wasn't just dangerous. This was already unraveling. And something else, something neither of us said, was becoming impossible to ignore. Once you start something like this, you don't get to choose how it ends. It didn't happen all at once. Nothing like that ever does. No single moment, no loud breaking, no clear line between before and after. Just small choices, quiet ones, made in rooms where no one was supposed to notice. But people always notice. Eventually. The house changed first, not in ways you could point to, in ways you could feel. Miss Beale watched more closely. The governor stayed home more often. Doors that used to be open weren't anymore. Something had reached them. A rumor, a suspicion, maybe just a feeling that something inside their world was no longer in its place. Clara stopped calling me as often. Not because she wanted to, because she understood. Distance was safety. Silence was protection. But even silence can speak. We still saw each other, across rooms, through doorways, in reflections. And every time, that same understanding passed between us. We had crossed something, and there was no way back. Then came the night everything shifted. It was late, Too late for work. Too late for visitors. I was in the yard, stacking wood under lantern light, when I heard it. My name. Soft. Careful. Seek. I turned. She stood near the edge of the house. No dress for show. No light behind her. Just shadow. You shouldn't be here, I said. Neither should you. She stepped closer, faster than before, like time had changed. They're watching, she said. My father, the others. I know. Her breathing was uneven, not fear, urgency. There are people in the city, she said. People who help others leave. The words landed hard, heavy, real. I had heard whispers. Stories pass quietly in the cabins. Roots. Safe places. Names never spoken twice. But hearing it from her made it different. Why are you telling me this? I asked. She looked at me, not like before. Not curious. Not searching. Certain. Because you asked what was beyond the window. A pause. This is it. The world felt smaller in that moment. Narrower. Like everything had been leading here. There's a man, she continued. Works the gardens. Not what he seems. Thomas. I knew him. Everyone did. Quiet. Steady. Invisible in the way men like him learn to be. He can help, she said. If you choose. If. That word again. This wasn't the gift. Not really. It was a door. The kind Mama June warned about. You could leave, she said. Or, you could help others leave. The second part stayed with me longer. Help others. Not escape. Not run. Build something. Break something. And you? I asked. She smiled. Small. Sad. I don't leave. My world doesn't work that way. A beat. But I can still choose what I do inside it. That was her freedom. Different from mine. But real. Footsteps in the distance. Voices. Closer. She stepped back. The moment already ending. Whatever you choose, she said. Don't stop asking questions. Then she was gone. Back into the house. Back into her world. I stood there alone. The lantern flickering. The night too quiet. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. Freedom wasn't just a place. It was a decision. 3 weeks later. Before dawn. I made mine. I didn't run. Not the way they expected. I disappeared. Quiet. Careful. Like I had learned to live. Some said I escaped. Some said I was taken. Some didn't think about it at all. But the truth was simpler. I followed the question. Years passed. More than I could count the same way I used to. Names changed. Places changed. But the work stayed. Guiding. Teaching. Opening doors for others. The kind no one can close once they're opened. And sometimes, late at night, I still thought about that room. That window. That question. What lies beyond it? Everything. If you're willing to ask. If you're willing to risk the answer. Because the truth is, chains don't break all at once. They crack. The moment someone dares to see past them. And that day, in a quiet room I was never meant to belong in. I did.